This is Building Bridges with Michael Hershman.
Hi, I'm Michael Hershman, and welcome to Building Bridges, that which unites us. A candid conversation about culture, democracy, and finding common ground. This week, I'm joined by Colin Quinn, a Brooklyn-born stand-up comedian and writer whose career spans MTV's Remote Control, Saturday Night Live, and Comedy Central's Tough Crowd. He's known for his Broadway and off-Broadway shows, including The New York Story, directed by none other than Jerry Seinfeld, and his book, Overstated, a coast-to-coast roast of the 50 states. His most recent special, Colin Quinn, Our Time Is Up, is now streaming on YouTube. Yeah, so, you know, New Yorkers are innately funny. And we talked to some of the folks on the street. And it's interesting, some of them use humor as an icebreaker. And some of them use humor as a defense mechanism. Have you ever used humor as a defense mechanism?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. I've used humor so much my whole life. I'm sure I've used it 10 different ways, but I don't feel like it's a defense mechanism. But, you know, any psychiatrist would probably say, oh, it's a defense mechanism, but who knows? I mean, I don't know if I have, but I've used it my whole life in every situation just because I don't even know if you say, I don't think I've used it. I just think it comes out naturally, you know?
So a psychiatrist might say it's a defense mechanism.
They'd say everything, yeah.
Give me $300.
That's right.
Right?
And then you go, no, that's funny.
Okay, let's hear what some of the folks in the street have to say about humor.
How do you use humor to deal with tough or complicated topics?
To be honest, I'm probably the worst person to be around when something is serious or something happened, because the first thing I'm gonna run to is cracking a joke. I'm the worst for it.
So humor has always been kind of a defense mechanism for me. If I'm uncomfortable in a situation, I'll like make a joke, laugh it off, but like I know when to be serious and when I can make a joke. If it's like a situation like, I just got someone punched me in the face, like, are you okay? I'll do that first, and then once we've established like they're okay, then I'll make fun of them, like lightheartedly, not like maliciously make fun of them.
I'm a big fan of dark humor, actually. It makes things not as hard, you know, it gives you something to laugh at. Not take life so seriously.
Can you think of a time when a joke or funny story helped you connect with someone?
I've heard a lot of funny stories from my friends. Like there was this one time my friend actually like went to like an overnight camp, and they were like guardrails by the cabins, and the one rule was don't jump over the railing. So this guy just like jumps over the railing anyway, loses his footing, and like slips on impact, and like he had a huge gash on his face for like a week. So it was a fun way to get to know him, just like how irresponsible he can be, but like, you know, we're friends, like really good friends after that. So like I'd say it's a good way to connect with people.
I guess I could say that we're gonna go dark, and then like, all right, so my cousin had passed away, and of course it was nothing to laugh about, but in the midst of it, we joking about memories and stuff like that, and everybody in the room did just lighten the whole mood from sad to everybody just laughing. So there's a time that comedy, you know, something funny.
When my dad was sick, a girl on my lacrosse team, her dad also went through something similar, and it came from me making a not so funny joke about it, and she laughed at it, and we ended up talking, and it made the blow a lot easier.
What's something about your neighborhood that always makes you laugh or smile?
There's always, I live in Brooklyn, Park Slope, so there's always something like some kind of like art piece around the street that's like really out there, and like you have to look at it for a few seconds, and then you find something that kind of just makes you chuckle. So it's like I said, a good way to just kind of like connect with the community and all that.
There's always characters. I'm born and raised in the Lower East Side, so I mean, at every corner there is a character, and never the same. It's always something you don't expect. So.
Thank you so much.
Nah, no problem.
Perfect. Thank you.
Dunkin' Donuts. We have really good Dunkin' Donuts, and I go there every single day. And the guys are really nice, and they get me free coffee sometimes, so yeah.
Talking to folks on the street, they always seem to find something funny about the neighborhoods in which they live.
Sure.
When do you get your material from your neighborhood?
I like what that guy was saying, the Lower East Side guy. I mean, when he said that on every corner there was somebody, I feel like, and everybody that grew up with me will tell you, I peaked at 15. It's been downhill ever since because those neighborhoods had so many funny people on every corner. As you know, growing up, you had characters. When you were working, delivering the soda, you ran into characters every day. Anytime I worked in that kind of job, you run into these funny people. And now it seems maybe because everyone's so more remote, but you don't have as many of those characters as you had. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I definitely, the neighborhood totally informed everything funny.
Yeah, I think actually in my case when I was delivering that soda, I ran into drunks more than characters. But and that's scary when it's 7 o'clock in the morning. But
You're not kidding, it's scary.
yeah.
I remember the Bowery when it was all drunks.
And did you serve Boilermakers?
When I bartended, no, Boilermakers were gone by then. I mean, occasionally you'd get on St. Patty's Day, a couple of the old timers ask for that. But I worked at, one of the bars I worked at was I worked at a couple of different types of bars. Some dive bars, some good ones. But one of them, that's what I worked at, was all the Mad Men. Gray Advertising, which is where they based Mad Men. They used to come to my bar and I didn't even realize it at the time, back in the early 80s. I should have, got in on the ground floor.
You have been described as the comic's comic, the comedian's comedian, by folks like Jerry Seinfeld. What does that mean exactly?
It means that my frequency is something comedians like, more than audiences. That's what it really means.
I don't understand.
Well, like if I'm on stage, the comedians will be like, ah, and the audience will be like, yeah, he's all right, but we like that other guy better.
So they see something that others don't see in your
Right.
humor.
Yeah. So, and maybe others don't even care to see. It's like the funny guy at any job. You know what I mean? It's like the funny guy in the bakery. You know what I mean? Like, I'm the inside baseball, but I'm not trying to be that. But that's just the way it comes off since I started. My frequency is for comedian. If this country was 20% comedians, I'd be the biggest comedian in the world right now. I'd be the hugest star if this country was 20% comedians.
Well, you're on my podcast. I thought you were a huge star. What are you trying to tell me?
Fair enough.
So look, there's a saying in New York.
Yeah.
That's as serious. That's as funny as a heart attack.
Right.
And you did have a heart attack.
I did have a
All
heart attack.
seriousness.
Sure.
Tell me about that, and tell me, did it change your life?
No. I mean, I wanted it to, but it didn't. But I mean, I had a heart attack like 7 years ago, and I mean, it didn't change my life. It didn't even change my diet really. But I take medication, which is a great plug for statins because they make you able to still eat like an animal and not get another heart attack. But I mean, yeah, it was a shocker, but all I did was got material out of it,
Did you have a history of heart issues?
No.
So it was sudden?
It was sudden. I was supposed to be taking statins according to my doctor, Dr. Lewis Katz, big showbiz doctor, that's why I mentioned his name. And everybody went to, every famous, if you asked any showbiz legendary actor, the biggest actors, Dr. Katz, they've all been to him. It's insane. He's the legend. He's the one, if he ever spill a secret, which he never would probably, there's no...
let me write that down. It's C-A-T-S?
C-A-T-Z. Yeah, no, he's a legend. I mean, everybody's been to him, but it's insane over the years. But he told me, he goes, you got to take statins. I was like, I don't need statins. I'm going to change my diet. Of course, I never did. 6 months later, I have a heart attack. I wake up in the hospital in Beth Israel, and sitting in my bed. Somehow he found out about it. He goes like this,
and sent you a bill.
He didn't say no. He just goes, like statins, and it was so funny.
So you didn't listen to Dr. Katz?
I didn't listen to Dr. Katz, and I paid the price, almost the permanent price.
Well, thank God you got better.
Yeah.
and I'm glad you're enjoying food again.
Yes.
Now that you take the statins, then it
Yes.
allows you to.
Ice cream.
Do you have children?
No.
Why?
It just didn't happen.
Because you didn't think they'd be as funny as you are? Or?
No, it wasn't a competition thing, I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about some advice for young comedians who are trying to break into the business?
I would say, well, now it's really hard. Like when I was coming up, it was already cluttered. Now it's saturated. But the only thing you have as a comedian is yourself. So everything you've been in, everything you've done, and your angle on things. So they would say it takes years to become yourself on stage, and that's what they mean. So instead of trying to be like, we all start out trying to emulate other people's personality, the closer you can get to yourself and just be out there like, this is all I have. This is all I have. I can't be whatever you want me to be. I'm only this. That's already going to be funnier than if you try to be like, hey, I'm this kind of guy. Whoever you are, that's all you got. So that also applies to your material in the sense that if you're trying to write material, if you start writing about your day and what happened to you during the day, it's going to end up being funnier if you have insights into yourself. But it takes, look, all this stuff is so in the rearview mirror. I'm like, of course. But when I started, we'd be sitting there writing away, trying to think of jokes, and that was not the expedient way to do this, because jokes will come based on your real life, and then so you should be. If I was giving advice to me, I'd say write what happened to you today, and try to fit any joke that comes into you there. Don't try to write the joke first. Write the actual event first, and let the jokes come out of that.
Social media has changed
Yes.
our lives. And I go on Instagram and I see these young comedians,
Right.
and you see the back of the audience. It's always the same audience, and it's always the same laugh track. So they now have, you didn't have that obviously as
No.
a young comedian. They have access to an audience that didn't exist for years. Is this a way of breaking through where it was hard to do years ago?
I mean, it's in some ways it's good, in some ways it's bad, but it's not. In the long run, all of that stuff is fine, but it doesn't replace, and everyone in comedy knows it, it doesn't replace being in front of a live crowd. Because the good thing about stand-up right now with AI especially is because in front of a live crowd, you can't hide anything. You're just there. And when you don't get a laugh, there's that silence. And everyone knows you were going for a laugh. And that's reality, and that's funnier. Those moments are as funny as anything. And the whole point is, when you're watching a stand-up comic, you're laughing, then it's quiet. Can they get another laugh? And then they get another laugh. So it's really a...
Why don't you just say, you know what, I didn't think that was funny either. Does that
You
work?
say that. That works once. But if you say that 3 times in a show, people are like, hey, what is this?
Exactly. So what was your breakthrough moment?
Probably MTV, which somebody was talking about before. I was on this MTV show, Remote Control, and it was in 1988, and it was like a huge show, but only people under 22 knew who we were. So we'd walk on the street, and these kids, like 16-year-old kids, would be like, all the tourist kids, they'd go crazy, and the adults like, who the hell are these? Who are these guys? Because it was network TV. MTV was its own world back then. This is like 1988. So we were, for that generation, they all knew us. You know, now they're all 50, but I'm saying, but at that time, they all knew who me and like 4 other people were on this crazy game show.
And I can't help but asking you, I must ask you, how did you get involved in Saturday Night Live?
My friend Fred Wolf recommended me as a writer for the show. So I auditioned for Lorne as a stand-up, as a writer, and I bombed. I had one of the worst sets in history, I have to be honest. I'm proud of, I bombed plenty in my career. This was the bomb. This was one of the greatest bombs of all time. They brought in, it was when comedy was not selling well. This was the mid-'90s. Comedy was, people were interested in karaoke and all these other things. Comedy had a collapse back in the mid-'90s, early mid-'90s. So, because it was just oversaturated. And so they had to bring in an audience. They brought in a camp, 15-year-old kids from a camp that were campers. They say, hey, you want to go to a comedy show? They bust in a camp. That was my audience. And so I couldn't relate. 15-year-old kids, I was, and so I went up there and I just bombed so badly. But then they hired me as a writer because he said he saw the material.
That's not a bomb. That's an improvised explosive device. That's way beyond a bomb.
It was brutal.
But they kept you.
And the guy before me did great.
Oh my goodness.
For
The
some
same
reason,
crowd? The
same crowd. He killed. I was like, and I knew it. I was like, but you keep, when in comedy you're always like, no, don't. It'll go good. You can get him. And then you're up there. You're like, the whole time you're up there, you're like, I can get him. And then you leave, and you're like, I didn't get him.
So, but why did they keep you if you bombed?
Because he was looking. Lorne said he saw the material was really smart, and they were hiring me as a writer, so he didn't care that I was such a bad.
And then, of course, you became.
I became an update,
a TV personality.
Right. But like I said, I was a TV personality before that from MTV. So to me, I was like, yeah, I've done this before. I mean, this MTV thing was big. We were just talking about that before. I know now it seems like even MTV, but at the time it was pretty big,
Colin, I want to thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us today. It brings back memories.
This is Building Bridges with Michael Hershman.